Hi, my name is Tatiana Wilch. I am currently a junior at the University of Central Arkansas, and today we'll be talking about the Hampton Race War of 1892. The LA Massacre is known as the deadliest racial conflict in the country, but there is another race war that is also important to Arkansas history. The Hampton Race War of 1892, also known as the Calhoun County Race War, happened in September of 1892 in Hampton, Arkansas. Two significant events led to this deadly breakout: the election law of 1891 and the white capper raids throughout the country. This caused the narrative of the event to be skewed in favor of the white Americans rather than the black Americans. In 1891, the election law played an important role in the setup of the Hampton Race War of 1892. The election law deprived many African Americans of their voting rights. They did this by using literacy tests and legally suppressing the Republican and third-party candidates. The reason for the law of 1891 was the Arkansas Democratic Party's concern about election fraud. The new law created standard state ballots, centralized control of the voting process, and enacted the secret ballot system. The standardized state ballot made it harder for illiterate voters to cast a ballot. Previous ballots used symbols that were easy to interpret. A state election board that was made up of the governor, the state auditor, and the Secretary of State was created to have control over the voting process. The election board appointed 3 judges for every precinct, and the judges would find 2 clerks to help them at the polls. The secret ballot system made it so no one could help voters except the appointed precinct judge. Illiterate voters were to inform the judges before casting their ballots. After the election law of 1891 went into effect, the estimated black vote went from 71% to 38%, and the white vote only dropped from 75% to 67%. Also, in the Arkansas General Assembly, there were 11 black representatives in 1891. Another reason that led to the Hampton Race War of 1892 is the white cappers terrorizing Calhoun County. White capping, also known as night riding, was a way poor white farmers and farm laborers would terrorize African Americans. They would oftentimes be disguised, so they could more easily attack and threaten black people. In March 1892, Reverend E. Malcolm Argyle reported in the Christian Recorder of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that there was much uneasiness and unrest over this state among our people, owing to the fact that the people, our race variety, all over the state are being lynched upon the slightest provocation. Some are being strung up to telegraph poles, others burned at the stake, and still others being shot like dogs. In the last 30 days, there have been not less than 8 colored persons lynched in this state. Another account of the white cappers' terror is the whipping of a black woman for insulting a white woman. White cappers benefited from the threats since it would make black voters want to leave the county, as Arkansas was going through an economic depression. In the early 1890s, Arkansas, along with the nation, was experiencing financial crises, which eventually led to the closure of banks and businesses in 1893. Black citizens were both terrified and angry. They wished to kill those who terrorized them. A white Republican man by the name of Unsil had encouraged the black people to retaliate and led an armed group of 42 black people to the polls in early September. This was not a new occurrence for Unsil. He reportedly led a similar event years before. In reaction to the armed group, election officials responded with violence. In the Arkansas Gazette, Jim Harrison is said to be the leader of the group. Apparently, he had a bad reputation as a gang leader among blacks and whites. At a church where a meeting of black men gathered, someone let out a shot, which caused people to flee. The preacher of the church hid out and began to issue warrants to the men who disrupted the peaceful meeting. This caught the attention of a white posse who made attempts to break it up, leading to the deaths of an unconfirmed number of African Americans. From a Camden newspaper, a similar event, or same, occurred between a white posse and a group of black people. The reports vary, but it's estimated that at least 2 African Americans were killed. The newspapers began calling this a race war, but the term race war was just another way for white people to make black people the problem. African Americans were killed and many others were arrested for disturbing the peace. Those arrested confessed that UNCIL was encouraging their efforts. Only in the news article titled "Jim Harrison, the coup that started all the trouble in Calhoun County" were black men named. It stated that Matthew Ferris, Abe Cook, and Turner Goodwin were all shot, which led to their deaths. Sidney Huffman was severely wounded in the arm and leg. The news article painted the men as hostile and belligerent. The Hampton Race War was not just a state concern, but a national one. In national newspapers, they recalled many accounts between white and black people in September that led to the murders of African Americans and reportedly 2 white people. One example is the Anaconda Standard for Montana. It stated that Jim Harrison had been lynched. The New York Sun contradicted what the Arkansas newspapers had said. It was reported that the race war in Calhoun County was due to the dissatisfaction of Negroes with the new election law, but it now appears that politics had nothing to do with the uprising. During the past 2 weeks, several Negroes have been taken from their cabins at night, severely flogged by whitecaps. Charlie Jones was whipped about a week ago for deserting his wife, a punishment which all Negroes endorsed. Several white men who make a living by trading with the Negroes, who outnumbered the whites 6-1, a figure greatly exaggerated, incited them against the people of the county, and armed with guns and pistols, they immediately went on warpath. Before, it was believed that black people were revolting due to the new election law, but the New York Sun claims it is because they were unjustly assaulted. The newspaper also begins to state names such as Charlie Jones, which was left out of most Arkansas accounts. Inadvertently, by stating Joseph's name, the Sun recognizes the strangeness African Americans face in their daily lives. Whipping, which was typically used during slavery to keep slaves in line, is an unfit punishment for a man deciding to leave his wife. This led to some African Americans threatening almost every white person they saw. It also recalls the people of Champagnat Township being concerned about the safety. So the Deputy Jones, and a posse attempted to calm them down, which led to a shootout. This led to the deputy being wounded in the leg. In return, the deputy killed 4 African Americans. On the way back to Hampton, the posse was attacked, but there was no casualties. On Sunday, September 18th, a posse met 150 mounted African Americans, only half of whom were armed. The black people fired on the deputies for several minutes to no effect, after which the deputies charged, killing 1 African American and wounding 7. According to the Sun, on Monday, September 19th, the greatest excitement prevailed in the southern part of the county. Negroes left their homes, taking only such clothing as they could carry in bundles. The cotton fields were deserted, and the farmers became much alarmed over the prospect of not being able to get their crops harvested. Farmers also used fear tactics to make sure that black people did not leave the farm, by saying malaria was going around and they would get it if they fled. The fear tactics used were an attempt to continue the control of laborers that southern states had nearly perfected. After the dust settled on the race war, there was a peace over Calhoun County. The black men went back to work, being promised protection by their white counterparts. It was reported 6 days later that black people felt no uneasiness and claimed crop gathering was going well, which was an attempt to ease white Arkansans' fears. In October, a posse of 15 white cappers were arrested for the race war. The men were allowed and made bail until the next grand jury meeting in Calhoun County. All accounts of the Hampton Race War of 1892 have contradictions, making it hard to draw an accurate conclusion of what really happened in this bloodbath. In relation to Jim Harrison, it is likely that he was not a major player in the race war. He was an easy scapegoat due to his notoriety and discourse among both groups. However, all state and national accounts state that Black Arkansans in Calhoun County had an effect on the race war, whether they started it by aggravating the peace in the county or by simply being of color. The post-Reconstruction era was to be a time for African Americans to be treated as equals, only for it to have been an effort for the continuation of the disenfranchisement of African Americans. The election law of 1891 was only the start of the irritation for African Americans in Calhoun County, Arkansas. They would be disenfranchised as they were before by taking away symbols which allowed illiterate voters to vote in favor of their opinion. Their voice was quieted. The state election board created an alliance that only aligned in favor of one party, the party that was not in favor of African Americans. White cap raids resembled those of the Ku Klux Klan 2 decades before. The little consequence that white Americans faced when they hurt Black Americans did not help the disenfranchisement of Black people. The narrative that Black people were the ones aggravating the peace further leads to the poor impression put on African Americans. In conclusion, the Hampton Race War of 1892 was inevitable due to the boiling tensions between white and Black Arkansans. White residents wanted Black residents out of the county, and Black people wished to be left alone and their rights granted to them. If there was no happy medium, both sides would suffer losses.